talking about what actually happens in Uganda. So if you're new, Watoto African Children's Choir is coming to town a week from Tuesday. This will be the 5th time we've had them in the city of Maricopa, and we're really excited about having them here. We've been looking for host homes. Host homes are all booked. Thank you very much. So the only thing left for you to do is show up March 19th, Leading Edge Academy, 7 p.m., and bring your neighborhood. So we want as many people to come as possible. You're doing a really good job of getting the word out, by the way. Social media, there's flyers in the back. It's an hour and a half of music, storytelling. It's just a beautiful thing, and it all is because of this place in Kampala, Uganda, called Watoto, where they take care of orphan kids, displaced mothers. Had the chance to visit there in 2019. It's fabulous. It is. If you ever go to Uganda, you got to make sure you stop at Watoto. So you're doing a great job. Thank you. Can I tell you a story? Another story. I'm going to tell you another story. This goes way back. I'm going to throw this way back to 2007. Was anybody here in 2007? Okay, 3 of you. Perfect. Some of you have heard this story before. Some of you haven't, but it's worth telling again. 2007, we were a new church plant. We started over at Pima Butte Elementary School. There were, 150 of us or so-ish. In 2007, I got a call from Eldorado Holdings, Rancho Eldorado, you know those folks, and said, hey, we have a piece of property over by what is now Pecana Park, 15 acres of property, and it's for sale. Do you want it? Now, every pastor's dream is to have land. Of course, every church's dream is to have land, and hopefully one day you'll have a building and you'll be official, because we were meeting in a little school. And I said, yeah, we'll take it. And he said, okay, it's $975,000, and you need to open escrow in the next 60 days, and that's going to be $25,000. Well, we had about $900 in the bank. We started in 2005. I was new to ministry. I was a church planter, and I used to tell people, I have no building, no people, no money, and no idea what I'm doing. But we'll take this property, and my good friend Bill Wasowitz, who passed away about 11, 12 years ago, him and I had become really, really close friends. And Bill grew up Catholic. Any of you grew up Catholic? Yeah, a lot of you. So he was in a Catholic school till he was about 12 years old, and he used to tell me, I went to church every day of my life for 12 years. After that, I figured I didn't need any more church. I was done. But Timmy Cheatham had invited Waz to our church plant. He became real involved, and over the course of those first 3 years, him and I, we played a lot of golf. He loved to golf. And it's amazing how much discipleship you can do on the golf course. 4 hours with somebody, a lot of conversations. But anyways, I said, Waz, we have a chance to get this property over at Pecana Park. At the time, it was just a big dirt lot. Porter Road ended at Pecana Park, if you're familiar with the area. After that, it was a field. So a lot's gone on in the last 18 years. And he said, we'll do it. Let's do it. And so we went to work trying to find money, almost $1 million. And first of all, we needed to raise $25,000 in 30 days, and somehow we did it. And I remember going over to Queen Creek. I knew a guy who knew a guy, and went over there, and he wrote me a check for $5,000 on his dining room table and said, here you go. And that paid the $25,000. That finished it off. So our church had just given extravagantly. But what about that $950,000? That's a lot of money. It was then, it still is today. So we went to banks, and they laughed at us, like, we're not giving you anything. We actually looked for some hard money. You know what a hard money loan is? Those are guys that'll break your fingers if you don't pay it back. They said, no, we can't do it. And so we were like, what are we going to do? Where are we going to find $950,000? And the city of Maricopa, Marty McDonald, I don't know if you know Marty McDonald. He was director of Parks and Rec at the time. He called me, and he said, hey, we'd love to meet with you. So I went over to City Hall, the trailers over here, it used to be in Old Town, and he said, hey, we want to buy some of that land to expand the park. So at the time, there were no parks in Maricopa. Those 2 softball fields and the unlit soccer field, that was it. There were no other places for our kids to play, and my kids were little, and I knew this. And I said, well, that sounds like maybe a plan. You buy some, and we'll work that out. And I said, how much do you want? And he said, we want 10 acres of your 15. And I remember laughing, going, that ain't going to happen. I'm not selling you 10 of our 15. We have prayed for that 15 acres, and we've worked hard for that 15 acres. And we laughed, and Waz and I met a couple of times, and over about a week, we decided there's no other way. except to sell 10 to the city and keep 5 for ourselves. And we went back and we met with them and we said, but what if you built some parking and could use that parking? You know, we kind of got our business hats on. And they go, yeah, we could do that. And then we could share parking. You still have 5 acres for a building. So we go, okay, we're going to do this. And I said, well, how much will you give us? And he said, well, what did you pay Eldorado Holdings? And I said, $65,000 an acre. And he said, we'll give you $65,000 an acre. And again, I was like, can't you give me a little? No, this was 2007-8, people. Anybody remember 2007-8? If you don't try to remember that. That's one of those things you want to block out of your history. It was a recession. People were leaving Maricopa by the droves. And so we agreed to it. Yes, we'll sell to the city 10 acres. We'll keep 5. We'll have $650,000 of the $950 we need. So that's at least almost home. About 2 weeks later, got a call from Mike Ingram, who is the CEO of Eldorado Holdings, very famous guy, very rich guy. And he said, hey, I understand you're going to sell some of this property to the city of Maricopa. And I said, yeah, that's the only way we can make this happen. He goes, would you mind coming up to our offices and just having a conversation? And I'd like you to bring the mayor. Tony Smith was the mayor at the time. They were part of this church. Bring the mayor, bring his wife, bring Bill and his wife, Patty. Patty still attends church here. She's usually here at one of these services. And I said, sure, we'd love to come up. And we went out there, and he ambushed us. There were several of his friends, and he said, look, we gave you that, strong word, sold you that property because we wanted a church there. That was the idea from the beginning, that there would be a 15-acre property with a church there. Don't fall asleep on me. This is going to get good in a minute. We want a church there, and we don't want you to do that. And so, if you don't come up with this $950,000 in the next 60 days, the contract was going to end. Maybe it was less than that, 30 days. We're going to cancel the contract. We're going to keep your $25,000 in escrow money, and we'll sell it to somebody else. And I was like, well, that's not very Christian of you. And Mike is a good guy. He is a Christian. He's a believer in Jesus. And I can remember being very mad and upset. And for about a week, I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I knew I had to go back and tell you, our church, we're not going to get the property. And the $25,000 you generously gave, I mean, people just scrounged to raise this $25,000. It's all gone. We're going to lose it all. Sorry. Shame on me. I made a huge mistake. And I can remember vividly, in my bedroom, in my walk-in closet, laying down on the floor, feeling nauseous. Like, how can I tell the church that I made this mistake? This is on me. I'm going to have to claim this. A couple days later, Waz and I were playing golf, like we did. And one of the rules we had was no cell phones. No cell phones when we play golf. And this is how vivid this is. I vividly remember we were on the 16th hole at the Duke. It's par 3, little par 3. And I had shanked my ball off to the left like I usually do. And so I was off in the desert, and his phone rang, and he goes, hey, it's Mike Ingram. And I'm like, well, you better answer that. Mike's not happy with us. You better find out what he wants. And so he's talking on the phone. I come back to the golf cart, and he goes, he wants to meet with me and Patty and the mayor and Nancy. And he said, do not bring the pastor. And I said, that's good, because I'm not going. I don't want to talk to the guy. I'm not real happy. So I think it was the next day, they went to dinner, met Mike somewhere up in Chandler. And it was about 8:30 at night. My phone rings. It's Waz. Hey, we need to meet. I'm like, all right, how bad can this be? He said, come over to Nancy and Tony's. We'll be there shortly. So I went over there, and I walked in. They're hanging out in the living room. And my friend Waz, who, again, new to this whole faith thing, very new. I loved Waz, by the way. He was an amazing guy. He stands up and he goes, well, I think I need to pray before we have this conversation. And I was like, dear God, how bad is it? I'd heard Waz drop more F-bombs than prayers. Okay, so I'm like, this must be horrendous. Like, what has happened? So Waz starts to pray, and it's prayers of thanksgiving. And I'm like, oh, Waz, you're drinking the Kool-Aid. Like, what has gone on here? And he's thanking God for Mike Ingram. And I'm like, no. And he finishes and he goes, okay, here's the deal. Here's the deal, Rusty. Mike has had a change of heart. He's going to allow us to sell our 10 acres to the city, and he's going to have his team do it. So if you've ever sold real estate, especially commercial real estate, there's a lot of moving pieces. You have title companies and brokers and agents and money to pay. And he said his team's going to make the whole thing happen seamlessly. We're going to close with the city the same day we close with them. The money will go from their account to our account to his account in one day, and then we'll have title to the 5 acres. That left us with $350,000 of debt. And he said, and Mike's going to give us personally $100,000. $100,000? And he's like, yeah, Mike's going to give it to us. He's going to write a check from his account to Eldorado Holdings, and he's going to carry the rest, $250,000, interest only, for 2 years. And I can remember standing up and going, all right, this is exactly how I had it planned. Now, the story gets better. So we had a 2-year note, $250,000, interest only. A young couple in our church, they've moved away probably 10 years ago, told us the next week, we want to pay the interest. We're going to make that interest payment for 2 years because we feel like God has called us to be a part of Community of Hope Church. So for 2 years, and we still had a $250,000 note, just about 6-7 months before that note was due, we entered into a relationship with Leading Edge Academy. They bought about half that land. We closed, I think, a week before that $250,000 was due. And guess how much they gave us for it? $250,000. Now, there's a lot more to that story because obviously we're not over there anymore. We're here. That story's for another time. But that's a part of your story. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't. You're here today because of that. And that was a long time ago. And a lot of those people aren't around anymore. Some of them have gone on to heaven. They're not here anymore. Stories are so important to who we are as people and to who we are as Christians. We are in week 5 of a series called Walking the Way of Jesus in Everyday Life. And we're talking about becoming disciples. What does it look like to be a disciple? It's so important, that word, and sometimes we don't quite understand. Being a disciple is someone who is becoming more like Jesus every day. You know, you're more like him today than you were yesterday. You're more like him next week than you were this week. And it's a process. It takes a lifetime. We don't go from 0 to 60 overnight. It's one step after another step, and sometimes it's 2 steps backwards, and sometimes it's 2 steps forward. But it's a process, and we've been giving you some disciplines that we can put into our life to help us. Discipleship, discipline, same root word. There's something to do. Week 1 was the Sunday before Lent, and we talked about the first discipline is we have to let go, pour out. Jesus poured out everything for us, everything. And maybe we don't get to that point in our life, in this life, but we're not going to be able to put anything else in our life until we let go of something else. And during the Lent season, which we're about halfway through now, there's always this moment for us to let go of something, to fast, to give up, to pour out, to let go. We use that illustration. You can't pick up the starfish in the water if your hands are full of broken shells, right? You got to let go before you can pick up. So pouring out was week 1. Week 2 was extravagant hospitality. And this isn't just having your buddies over for burgers. This is going to the other side and being hospitable to people that aren't like us, don't believe like us, don't talk like us, don't vote like us, aren't like us. It's extravagant hospitality. The Good Samaritan, Jesus uses that parable. That's extravagant hospitality. Week 3, we talked about rest. On 6 days, you shall do all your work, and on the 7th day, you do nothing, and how important rest is to our lives. And if we're going to be very effective in our lives, we desperately need rest. And then last week, anybody remember what we talked about last week? Confession. But confession is more than just confessing sins. It is confessing sins, but it's getting in everything in here that's damaged us. Stress, trauma, grief, pain, anger. Everything that's in here stuck, it's getting it here, out here, where it can be heard and can be healed. So confession all of these are important, by the way. All of these, if we'll add a bit of these to our lives, we'll over time become more like Christ. Today is the discipline of remembering. And the best way to remember something is to hear a story. We love stories. That's why we go to movies. That's why we read books. We remember stories. I looked through over 1,000 pictures of this church over the last 18, 19 years this week. Each picture with a different person. Each picture representing a different story. Baptisms, Mother's Days, Easters, Christmases, work days, missions trips, kids camps. Each person a different story, but all a part of this story. You know, you are who you are today because of your story, because of the story of your family, your parents, your grandparents, your teachers, your coaches, your Sunday school teachers, your pastors, your friends. They shape who we are. And in the Christian community, in the faith community, we are who we are because of our stories. And it's beautiful that every faith community in this city alone has a different story. All different stories, but God kind of intersects with all of them at one place or another. Beautiful, beautiful stories. We're told to tell stories. Exodus 13:3, Moses says, remember this day. 1 Chronicles 16, remember the wondrous works. Remember. Ephesians 2:11, remember that one time you, the Gentiles in the flesh. 2 Timothy 2:8, remember Christ risen from the dead. And all of these are done through stories, a beautiful story called the Bible. The scriptures are stories that represent our DNA, who we have become over time. So this morning, I already told you one story. I got a couple more for you. Okay, I can tell you're excited. All right. Jenny, come on. I want to introduce you to my friend Jenny Radigan. Please give her a hand. Hey, Jenny.
Hi.
How you doing? Sit down. We'll just sit down here and talk. So I've known Jenny for a long time. Couple things. I just want to kind of move really quickly through your life story. I know we can do that super quick. But starting here, like, how did you find Community of Hope Church? And then how did that impact your family, your husband, your kids?
That is a great question.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first postcard the Community of Hope sent out?
Maybe.
It said, it was along the theme of Got Milk.
Oh,
I think
Got
it was
Hope.
Got Jesus.
Got Hope.
Got Hope. Is that what it was?
Yep.
Well, that's how we started.
Nice.
We moved here that week, and we needed a church. This huge postcard. Postcards in Arizona are a lot bigger than in New York.
Yeah.
Like that, and it was an advertisement for this church.
Yeah.
And so we showed up, and there was a rock band at the stage of this school. And being from a Catholic church in New York, it was amazing. And my kids fell in love, and that was our start. The very first week.
So you were
And
over
your
at Pima
kids
Butte.
were little.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Pima Butte.
Yeah, Pima Butte.
The Pima Butte days.
Yeah, you guys rolled out chairs, something I'd never seen in my life.
Benches.
Yeah.
Yeah, uncomfortable benches.
Yeah,
You
they
need
sure
to
were.
remember those uncomfortable benches.
Lunchroom.
Lunchroom. So a little about your journey over the next few years leading up to your move.
Okay. So we've given birth to 6 boys.
Yeah.
And Oscar was our last, right now 14-year-old.
Wow.
And we just lived here in Maricopa. We did not start coming here. We came here whenever we wanted to go to church. But it wasn't until my mother died that we really searched for more connection and more meaning. And so that was about 10 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Community of Hope Church went on a mission trip, which was crazy because nobody goes to Mexico on purpose. So I definitely wasn't going on a mission trip, obviously. And then Ken and Jim were like,
Yep.
oh no, you'll have a great time. And I'm like, no, I won't. But we went anyway. I don't know why. And that was it.
So what happened in Mexico?
Awful things, terrible things.
Yeah.
I know, it sounds so funny. So we did not get to see the tourist area. I never saw that. I didn't see that for over a year.
Wow.
We got brought to San Rafael, where Eric's mission is, and there was like a dog dying, and some guy standing on top of the train, traveling on the train. And there was a woman making tortillas, which she did 7 days a week. And her kids were in an orphanage because she couldn't afford to care for them.
Right.
So she just sent money to them. And honestly, I thought, how do you burn a whole country down? because that's what I want to do right now.
Yeah.
I mean, I just felt terrible. And I kind of lay in these thoughts and I laid in these thoughts and then I had this terrible thought and it was so awful because I knew I had to listen to it, but I literally did not want to. And it was, you have to go to Mexico. It was awful, just awful. I literally remember thinking,
And what'd your
like,
pastor tell you?
he said, no, you're crazy.
Don't go.
No. And we started going down. I started teaching at the orphanage,
Yeah.
and he's teaching English, and we were just going to go every 3 weeks and just teach. And so we made some connections. We made some dog rescue connections and homeless organization in Penasco and the orphanage in Sonoita. And then we thought, you know what would be great? Because obviously I can learn Spanish in 6 weeks. So we'll just go for 6 weeks during the summer because I'm a teacher. And in that 6 weeks, we'll learn Spanish. Obviously, I had 2 little ones still left at home. And we were just going to stay there for 6 weeks. And then I did learn hola
Gracias.
and gracias.
Baño.
Cerveza.
Cerveza. Baño.
Baño.
Donde está?
Donde está el baño? Yeah, so I learned
Where's the
those.
bathroom for you non-Spanish speakers?
And at the end of 6 weeks, I had this awful thought that I had to quit my job
Yeah.
and lose these connections that I had made my whole life, and English. And we did. We got rid of everything and moved into a tiny little house and got running water most of the time,
Yeah.
but not always. And we cried a lot
Yeah.
that first year. I knew I was supposed to be there. I just didn't necessarily want to be there.
Because Tom didn't come.
No, Tom was only, and still is only
Yeah.
there on weekends.
Her husband. He's a commuter dad.
Mm-hmm.
Husband.
Yeah.
So I know you've done a lot of things down there. A lot. You've had your finger in many, many, many things. You survived the pandemic, which was really tough.
Scary.
We thought it was tough here. Nothing compared to living in Mexico
Definitely
or a
scary.
third world country.
Yeah.
I had a lot of conversations with Jenny during the whole pandemic thing, and I think you were afraid for your life at times.
We definitely were. We were called foreigners for the
Yeah.
first time. It was a little scary. We have one Mexican son, and that's who we used to send out
To get groceries
to
and
get
stuff.
groceries and stuff
Yeah.
so they wouldn't see us.
So we love Rocky Point. I only go down there when it's safe. I hate to tell you, but Jenny has been there for
7 years, almost 7 years now.
Yeah, and what are you doing currently?
So essentially, my where I believe I'm called to be is the voice for those who really don't have one.
Yeah.
So that's so it's with animals, of course, with the dogs, and Barb's Dog Rescue and Compassion Without Borders, and then God's Grace Foundation. That's the homeless and the prisoners. So I do prison ministry, and we feed the homeless. And then we have like an organization for like women. It's called Women Helping Women, and we, help in the
Just
community.
tell me one story of where you go out to where the dump is. I don't know what that's called. Is there anything you can?
La basurera.
Yeah.
So I love that you asked me that one.
Yeah.
Okay, so we go to the.
Let me just set the stage. So there is any culture has levels of poverty. Here, I mean, working poor, and then maybe you have somebody who's a little bit, and then you finally get to the people that are living on the streets. And even among people living on the streets, there are, I wouldn't eat out of that dumpster. I mean, you get lower and lower until you get the bottom of the food chain. And this is the place where the poorest of the poor live in Penasco.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's the garbage dump.
Live is a strong word.
Right.
Where they survive.
Right. The garbage dump.
Yeah.
We went there because of some dogs. We had heard that there was a bunch of dogs there, and what we found is that they really take good care of their dogs. And there happens to be a lot of food for dogs
At the dump.
at the dump. So what these people do is they set up, whatever garbage they find. So when we go to feed them, we better not go when a garbage truck comes.
Oh.
Because no matter what, they will run
Right.
for that garbage truck. But there is one particular woman named Olivia, and she is blind.
Oh.
She has a place, and it's generally about the same place, but because the garbage always burns, sometimes they have to move it because you just literally can't breathe. So she's blind, and she feels for things that she can find. She has a husband who also lives there. There are a lot of children that live there as well. And when I see people, in Mexico right now, watering the front to tamp down the dirt, I think, what a blessing. Like they have no idea how lucky they are that they can just water something, right? Because it's so relative what you're lucky.
Yeah.
And so I will walk to her. The whole time I'm walking, I have to be really careful because there are so many dangerous, sharp objects. And then I get to her, and I will help her with her animals, and I'll help her with food, and we'll bring what everybody else can grab, we bring to her. And this Thanksgiving, as we were preparing our dinner, my husband said something, just something about the kitchen. Our house is, it's just another house, and it doesn't have a dishwasher. All the things that we were used to here, we don't have there. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed. I closed my eyes and I walked from the counter to the sink. And I knew my husband was looking at me like I was crazy, but that is not unusual. And I said, do you understand how lucky we are? I don't have to worry that I'm going to step on glass, that I'm going to get an infection that won't heal, that I'm going to go septic from just little scratches. As I walk to Olivia, the toys that we've given children are left in front of their boxes that are lean-tos there's not an inch that's not covered by flies. And it's so easy to say, like, oh my gosh, I don't have a dishwasher. Can't get cold, can't get hot water to take a shower. If we get water, and we're lucky to have water most of the time, but we often don't. And so when I think of that walk from the counter to the sink with my eyes closed, I know that I'm one of the luckiest, richest people on earth.
Perspective is everything, isn't
Everything.
it? Yeah. So, we have a mission trip coming up
Yes,
to
we
Rocky
do.
Point. Yes, April,
Is Talitha here yet?
what? 26, 27, 28? Okay. It's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. We leave here on Friday noonish or so. Drive down. It's about 3.5 hour drive down. We stay at a really beautiful. We won't make you sleep at Olivia's. You get to stay at a really nice hotel on the beach. That night we have a meal together. The next morning you will go serve somewhere in Penasco. Not necessarily the dump, but maybe usually someone's house.
It'll most likely be at God's Grace Foundation.
Yeah.
For most will serve, feed the homeless.
So you feed people. Sometimes we do some light construction, that kind of thing. Saturday afternoon, we usually give you off to enjoy. Has anybody been to Rocky Point? It is fabulous. I mean, I go there on vacation because I don't have a blind eye, but it is a fabulous place to go on vacation and just enjoy the culture. And the people are wonderful. We have developed some rich relationships with people, just the people that work there and live there and have businesses there. And I know you have as well. So.
And the nice thing about these trips is that you don't have to have a talent necessarily, other than the ability to love, the ability to be open to really different things, the ability to be open to different smells, different actions, different words. It is different there, but if you are somebody even in a walker, or if you're somebody who's incredibly strong, literally a child, every single person can serve. I mean, one of my children is here now, and he would tell you that I definitely used the kids. The kids served as much as we did.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really open for everybody, and I hope a lot of people come.
Yeah. So Ginny and Reed and Talitha lead that. Martin, you're going to be outside after the service is over. Maybe you want to have a conversation with Ginny. She's a part of your story. Who would have thought? Yes. And they're a part of your story as well. You're a part of my story. Here's what happens when you go. And I mentioned this the last time I went to Kenya, I figured out why. I don't know if I told you this. Because people always go, why would you do that? Why would you spend 3 weeks living in the dirt, in no restrooms, no running water, no air conditioning, it's hot, on the ground in a hot, why would you do all that time, all that money? And I know now why. Because it makes me a better person. I come back better than I was before. I'm a better disciple. My perspective has been changed. My understanding of the world has changed. It makes me more like Christ, and that's what these trips do. And you come back feeling better too.
Yes,
always.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, girl. I appreciate you. Thanks for coming back to the States to visit us. I'm going to take that. Chris, come on down. Chris Leone is coming down. He has got one of his kids with him, his students, sorry, no kids. Talk a little bit about what happened just a couple weeks ago. Oh, nice.
Or read. So, if we haven't met, my name is Chris. Chris Leon. I get to work with the students here. Super awesome. Absolutely love it. And one of the things that we did recently is we went to camp 2 weeks ago. And something I get a kick out of, that I asked either Reed or Talitha to speak, is when I get to take adults up there with me, they get to, I would say, see a different side to students. And especially Reed lives with two of our students. So you get to see them, I don't know, there's a freedom of worship. There's a freedom of just freedom, I guess, up there. And you just get to experience teenagers a whole different way. So I've asked Mario to come up and speak. I'm going to ask Reed to speak first about camp.
Thank you, Chris. 100%. As far as the kids, they get up there, there's a sense of freedom. There's an expression. You just take them out of this element. I think kids these days have so much pressure, so many things that are coming on them basically right in front of their face all the time. And we get up there and a lot of those things go away. I mean, we don't have a strict no phone policy, but just kids aren't on their phones. And as far as worship goes, the kids getting involved in singing and lifting their hands and just being so in tune. And I couldn't be more proud of the group that Maricopa brought. It was a fairly large group that went, one of the largest groups that went. And there was groups from very, very large churches in the Valley area. And our kids just were tuned in. They were right there. They were engaged. They were paying attention. They weren't distracting other kids. They were really, really, really paying attention. And there was a number of times where kids from maybe more affluent places were just disengaged and they were distracting other kids. And the teacher and me had to address a few of those. And luckily I had Rob right behind me staring at them as I was trying to help them refocus. But our kids were there. They were in it. They were zoned in it. And when they were out and about, and they were just in, I don't know, it was bliss for many of them. They were just like there, and they loved every moment of it. I also want to talk we had a group of people come, one of the larger groups of volunteers that we had recently in a while. And when I started my experience, I was right there and in the kitchen and just cooking the meals and prepping the meals and serving the meals. And that is a powerful and amazing experience. And I transitioned over to helping and doing like what Rob did, which was sitting in the cabins with the kids and being that mentor. And working in the kitchen is easier, 100%. So just saying, but it's powerful. It ministers to every adult that goes. It just hits you in an amazing way. And seeing the things that happen with the kids is powerful. So if you get a chance to join in on something like that, watching the kids and what they experience is really super powerful. Kind of like going to Mexico and helping out.
Thanks, Reed. So one of the things I learned early on in leadership is surround yourself with better people than you, so you look really good. And so that's what I did with Reed and Talitha. They go up there with me. One of my responsibilities is this like leader lounge area for all the adults that go, and they go and they host that for me. They set things up. Their hearts get to open up and receive people, and they're so good at that. And they got to just witness the students, and again, it was awesome. So we've started a journey recently where I have a student leadership team where we're developing student leaders, not just, we can't wait for them to be the church of tomorrow, right? We got to train them today. So Mario is on my student leadership team. There's certain accountability he does. There's certain training that we do throughout the weeks. And so Mario Nuno was a kid that also went to camp, and I asked him if he would talk about his experience this morning.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to talk about some stories from camp that I thought were fun, because it was very fun. I wish it was longer, but, it was fun, I guess. But we did this lip sync battle thing, and we just planned it out of nowhere, randomly. Like the day of, we practiced and we did, and like we quit, and then we joined, and we quit, and we joined, and we just like, oh, let's just do it, right? So we did "Love" by Keisha Cole. I was like, everyone knows that song, and so we just thought it would be a good song to do. And we were watching everyone else do the lip sync battle because we were like third, and we saw them doing all these like flips and stuff, and we're like, we can't do any of those flips, so how are we gonna, like, we're gonna lose this thing. So we got Nate and then Felipe. I don't know if you know Felipe, but you know Nate obviously because Coach Leon. But we got Nate and we got one of our kids. They grabbed the legs and like flipped him during the thing, and then he fell on the ground. Hit his face right on the stage. It was so funny. But then at the end of it, we saw all these like good lip sync battles go, and we were like, oh yeah, we're not winning this. And then it was time for voting. And then by the time of voting happened, they were cheering for our name, and we just hear like everyone cheer for our name. And then we were top 4. We're waiting on the podium stage, and then they cheer again. We made it to top 2. And then there was this one good group that like did backflips, like front flips and all this stuff. And like all the girls were like, oh, going crazy for them, right? And we didn't care. And then for us, like everyone in the back was like crazy, yelling, screaming. And then we ended up winning. So that was the first time winning, first time doing it. Yeah, it was a blast. We did basketball and dodgeball, but we forgot about those. Yeah, it was a good time. We had fun. And also, the pastor, the guy who was speaking, I forgot his name, I can't remember. But he was talking about how he uses God, he uses you in like uncomfortable situations that you're not used to. Because like right now, I'm like totally uncomfortable, but I'm just doing it. But he was talking about how like he was at the store one time and he went, like he felt this feeling about some girl wearing a mask, and he thought God was telling him like, go pray for them. And he was like, nah, I don't want to do that. And he ended up going to the parking lot, like following them, but like not in a weird way, I guess. I'm not sure, but he followed them, and he was like, he went up to the lady, and he's like, ma'am, I got a feeling that I need to pray for you. And she was like, well, my daughter has cancer, right? So he ended up praying for them. And turns out, a couple years after that, the daughter ended up not having cancer, and she got cured. So that just tells us that God will use us in many ways. You just don't know how it's going to look. So, because recently in my, sorry. In my, one of my close friends, mom passed away. And I was there the day it happened. And God was using me to help their family and comfort them because they have no one. So I was there to help them and be like a brother to them and comfort them and pray over them because their mom just passed away. So God is using me to help them and comfort them and tell them that it's going to be okay. Everything happens for a reason, even if you don't see it right now. So I just wanted to share that story, and thank you.
Good job, bud. Not sure how I follow him. But please be in prayer for that family. The young man's name is AJ. He started coming to the group recently during the week, and he missed camp because at last minute they said that his mom only had hours, so he wanted to spend the last couple of days, and then she ended up passing the day after we got back. So definitely pray for them. So what I'm holding here, it's very common at our camps to have some kind of response, something, a way for students to just kind of not take a stand, but just kind of be respond to what God's done in a tangible way, if that makes sense. So here they had this set up, and this is just our church. And so our students took an ink pad and put their fingerprint, which I think is significant because of how unique our fingerprints are. And there is different colors that mean different things. So this is all students from our church. And if we look at the yellow is a recommitment, just dedicating their life again to Christ through the weekend. The blue is ready to be baptized, and I love that because that's something I get to follow up on and talk to them about and see where their heart is. And then the green is a first time decision made for Christ. Isn't that awesome? Right? And so I think this is important as we talk about stories. And one thing is God's still writing our stories, and these young people have no idea. I believe God just used Mario in a powerful way, and that's just the beginning. Mario is also pursuing a call to ministry at his age, and there's a retreat that we're talking about him going on for some training later in April for him to just take on some more training and see if that's what God has for him. And that's exciting, right, church? And we have this next generation who's, first off, he stood in front of you, which most of you would not do. And he's willing to be used by God. And these are students, I mean, the last thing I want to share. So I'm the freshman football head coach over at MHS. And this is one of the years that we've taken more football players. And the cool thing is, with us taking as many kids as we did, nobody was not from our church. They either come on a weekday group or a Sunday group. So it's not like we just, hey, whoever wants to come. It was kids that we get to talk to on a weekly basis. But one of the moments that rocked me Saturday night, so students, it's so funny. Friday night, their worship is like this, the first night. They might be singing a little bit. And then by Saturday night, they're in the front, and they're like jumping around and raising their hands. And there was a moment toward the end of the service of Saturday night that I look up. And as a football coach, if you would have told me at the beginning of the season, I would have my starting quarterback, running back, receivers, corners, my whole starting offense, just raising their hands at the altar and just worshiping with all their hearts, I wouldn't have believed you. And I'm so thankful that we have a church that supports that and believes in that. Those young men, it just blew me away. I was like, what the heck? I remember yelling at him for missing a pass, and now we're just worshiping. Believe me, it did not sound great. But to see the tears and just see the vulnerability that they, weeks before this point probably didn't experience God like this. But having a church that supports it, I just appreciate you guys so much. Thank you.
Wow. You're not going to remember my story. I mean, remembering's so important. The last night Jesus was with his disciples. He's in the upper room. They're celebrating Passover, and he takes the cup and the bread, and he tells them these words: when you take this cup, the cup represents my blood, which is going to be poured out for the forgiveness of sins. And he breaks the bread, and he says, this is my body broken for you because I love you. This is why I came, to show you how much God the Father loves you and how much I love you. And he says, whenever you do this, remember me. Remember me. And we end every service with communion. If you're new, we invite you to the table with us. This is where, in fact, if you want to take home for today, this is it. The best way to remember your stories is around the table. We've lost the art of gathering as a family around the table. We're busy or we have our phones in our hands, but it's around the table where we tell the stories of who we are, where we came from, that shape us for the future. And one of the reasons we invite you to our table is because we want you to be a part of this community and what's going on. So we're going to do a little bit different. Jenny, why don't you come up? Jenny and I are going to serve you up here in the front. And you're free to come up and just take the elements, and then you can turn to your seats. And Chris and a student or two is going to serve you in the back, because we want to be a part of what's happening here today. So I'm going to ask you to stand. I'm going to pray, and then you're free to move to the tables and then back to your seats. God, thank you for today. We're so grateful for all the stories in this room. Every person has a story, God. And we want to know what that story is. And we want to remember what you've done for everyone in this room. We want to not only remember the good times, but we want to remember the mistakes we've made. Come again. We're grateful for your son, Jesus, God. And most of all, we want to remember him in this Lent season and what he did for us. And we want to remember that the tomb is empty, that love has won. We just pray all this in King Jesus' name. Amen. Yeah, Brett.